My name is Carol. My name is Caroline Hayes. I'm 38 years old, and I live in Nashville, Tennessee, with my 7-year-old daughter, Emily. I'm an English teacher at a public school, and like many people my age, I carry my share of frustrations, regrets, and choices that didn't turn out the way I thought they would. Today, I want to share with you a story that changed something deep inside me, a moment that started in the simplest way, right before dinner, when my daughter's toy was broken. But before I take you deeper into this story, I want to ask you something from the heart. Subscribe to this channel. I know you've heard that 1,000 times before, but this is different. I don't just want another number. I want you here because every single day I bring you real, emotional stories that stay with you long after you hear them. If you value stories that feel raw and human, if you're the type of person who reflects on family, choices, and regrets, then subscribing means you'll never miss the next moment that could touch your life in unexpected ways. Now, let's go back to that night. It was a chilly Tuesday in the middle of fall, the kind of night when the wind rattles against the windows and you just want the warmth of home. I had just gotten back from school, exhausted, my head still full of lesson plans and student complaints. Emily was in the living room, sitting, cross-legged on the carpet, playing with her favorite doll, the one I'd given her last Christmas. And there, standing by the couch, was Lillian, my younger sister. Lillian had moved in with us not long before, after her messy divorce. I wanted to help her. I really did. I told myself she just needed a place to land until she got back on her feet. But the truth is, living together was starting to tear at my patience. I've always been the responsible one in the family. When we were kids, I was the one who packed lunches, helped Mom with the laundry, and dragged Lillian out of bed for school. She was always the free spirit, the rebel, the one who believed rules were meant to be broken. Life didn't exactly reward her for that attitude. Still, I opened my door when she had nowhere else to go. And that night, it all cracked open. As I stirred the pot on the stove, I heard it, a sharp snap, followed by a cry. I rushed into the living room to find Emily clutching her doll, tears streaking her cheeks. One of the doll's arms hung loose, broken beyond repair. Lillian stood there, her arms crossed, her face twisted into something that looked more like annoyance than guilt. "It was an accident," she said flatly. "Besides, it's just a cheap plastic toy." Emily's sobs cut through me. She held that doll like it was part of her soul, rocking it as if she could glue it back together with love alone. My chest tightened. I turned to Lillian, my jaw clenched. I took a deep breath and said only one sentence. "You have no idea what you just broke." And in that instant, I watched the color drain from her face. Not because of the toy. She didn't care about that. It was the weight in my voice. The truth she knew was buried in it. A truth she had no idea was coming. Because what I meant by those words had nothing to do with plastic or dolls. It was about us. About years of silence, resentment, and a secret she didn't know I'd been keeping. I sat beside Emily, brushing her hair away from her damp cheeks, whispering that everything would be all right. But inside, I was burning. This wasn't just about a toy. It was about me swallowing anger my entire life, keeping quiet to avoid fights, letting my sister take and take while I carried the weight. And if you're still with me, don't wait. Hit that subscribe button now. This story isn't just about one broken toy. It's about broken families, broken promises, and the breaking point we all reach. Subscribing means you'll be right here with me, following every turn, every revelation, because the truth I'm about to share could easily be something you've lived through yourself. That night, the food on the stove went cold. The house was filled with tension instead of the smell of dinner. I stared at Lillian. She stared back, but only for a moment, before her eyes dropped. She muttered, almost too soft to hear, I didn't mean to hurt anyone. But it wasn't about meaning. It wasn't about toys. It was about us. About what had been festering between us for decades. And I knew it was time to finally tell her. Before I continue, remember to subscribe. Because what I'm about to reveal is something I never thought I'd say out loud, and it changed the way my sister looked at me forever. The silence that followed my words was almost unbearable. Emily had retreated to her bedroom, clutching her broken doll like a wounded soldier. I could hear her soft sobs behind the closed door, and each one pierced through me like a blade. Lillian sat on the couch, tapping her fingers on the armrest, avoiding my eyes. That was her way, to deflect, to diminish, to pretend nothing ever mattered as much as I claimed it did. But this time, I wasn't letting it slide. You think it's just a toy, I said quietly, sitting across from her. But that doll, it was the only thing Emily asked for last Christmas. I worked extra tutoring sessions, skipped dinners, and cut corners just to afford it. To her, it wasn't plastic. It was proof that I could give her something she dreamed of. Lillian finally looked at me. Her eyes softened for just a second, but then the shield came back up. Caroline, you're being dramatic. It's a kid's toy. She'll forget about it in a week. I leaned forward, my voice low, controlled. That's the difference between you and me, Lillian. You've spent your whole life believing people just get over things. But not everything can be swept aside. Not everything can be forgotten. She swallowed hard, shifting in her seat. I could see the unease creeping in, and that's when I realized she truly had no idea how much of my life she had broken without even noticing. Before I go further, I need to pause here and tell you something important. Subscribe to this channel. Not because I want to sell you something, but because I know stories like this, real, raw, imperfect family stories, matter. They echo in our own lives. If you've ever felt unappreciated, overlooked, or forced to carry the weight for someone else, then this channel will feel like home to you. Subscribing means you'll never miss the next story that could mirror a part of your own life. I took a deep breath and said the words I'd kept buried for years. Do you know why I spoil Emily as much as I can? Why I stretch myself thin to give her everything? Because I swore I'd never let her feel what we felt growing up. Lillian frowned, confused. What are you talking about? I stood up, pacing the room. The memories were pouring out of me. Memories I had forced down for decades. Mom worked herself to the bone. Dad left before I even turned 10. You remember those nights, don't you? The empty fridge, the eviction notices, the fights Mom tried to hide from us. Lillian's face paled. She opened her mouth but didn't answer. I was the one who held it all together, I continued, my voice trembling. I was the one who figured out how to cook from scraps, who made sure you had shoes that fit for school. I sacrificed things I'll never get back. And what did you do, Lillian? You rebelled. You ran off. You left me holding everything. You never once asked what that did to me. Her eyes glistened, but she didn't cry. My sister never cried. Not in front of me. You think Emily's doll is just plastic? I said sharply. It's not. It's a symbol. Every time I give her something, no matter how small, I feel like I'm healing the little girl I used to be. The one who never got anything she truly wanted. And when you broke it, my voice cracked. When you broke it, you weren't just careless. You broke a promise I made to myself. For the first time, Lillian didn't have a snarky comeback. She looked at me as if she was seeing me for the first time. Caroline, she whispered, her voice unsteady. And in that fragile moment, I realized something else, something even heavier. This wasn't just about our childhood. It wasn't just about Emily. It was about a truth I had kept from my sister. A truth that could change everything she thought she knew about our family. And before I reveal that truth, I have to remind you, Subscribe right now, because this story is only getting deeper. It's not just about a fight between sisters. It's about secrets buried in silence, about the way childhood scars carry into adulthood. If you want to follow every layer of this story, don't risk forgetting later. Hit that subscribe button so you're here when each part unfolds. The clock ticked on the wall, filling the silence between us. My chest rose and fell as I tried to steady my breathing. I was about to say something I had never spoken aloud, not even to Emily. I lowered my voice. There's something you don't know about why I raised you the way I did. Something Mom never told you. Something I've kept buried because I didn't think you could handle it. Lillian's lips parted, her brows furrowing. What are you talking about? I looked straight at her, my hands trembling. And I knew. This was the moment that would either destroy us forever or finally set us free. Don't miss what happens next. Subscribe now, because in part 3, I'm going to reveal the secret that's been locked inside me for decades. The one that explains everything. Lillian's eyes were locked on me, a mix of suspicion and fear building on her face. For the first time that night, she wasn't defensive. She wasn't sarcastic. She was just still. I sat back down, my hands folded tightly in my lap because they wouldn't stop trembling. My voice was steady, though. Years of holding this inside had given it a strange kind of strength. Lillian, I began slowly. Do you ever wonder why Mom pushed me so hard to take care of you? Why she always told me it was my responsibility to keep you safe? She frowned, shifting uncomfortably. Because you were the older sister. That's how it works. I shook my head. No, it was more than that. Her brows furrowed deeper. Caroline, what are you saying? I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of every word before I spoke it. Mom never told you, but we don't share the same father. The silence that followed was so sharp it was almost painful. Lillian's lips parted slightly, her eyes widening. She blinked, as if she was trying to process whether she had heard me correctly. What? She finally whispered. Your father wasn't mine, I said firmly. I'm Dad's daughter, but you're not. Her hands gripped the cushion beside her as though the world was tilting. I saw her chest rise and fall rapidly. That's not true. You're lying. I wish I was, I replied, my throat tightening. Mom kept it from you because she thought you couldn't handle it. She thought it would destroy you. And maybe she was right, because you spent your whole life chasing someone who wasn't really there. Lillian's eyes filled with tears, and this time, she didn't fight them. One fell, then another. She shook her head, over and over, like a child refusing reality. No, Mom wouldn't do that. She wouldn't keep something like that from me. She did, I whispered. She told me when I turned 16, because I was the one taking care of you. She said I needed to know the truth, so I could protect you from it. And I carried that secret every single day since. Lillian's, face crumpled, and for a moment, she looked like the little sister I used to comfort after nightmares. But now, the nightmare was real. I need to pause here and tell you this. Subscribe to the channel right now. Because stories like this aren't just about family drama. They're about the hidden truths we all live with. The ones we bury because we're too afraid to speak them out loud. If you've ever had secrets in your family, if you've ever felt the weight of carrying something alone, then these stories will speak directly to you. Don't miss what comes next. Hit that subscribe button and stay with me. Lillian wiped her tears with the back of her hand, her breathing ragged. So, who is he? My father? I hesitated. This was the part I feared the most. I don't know. Mom never told me. She only said it was someone she loved, someone who couldn't stay. She didn't want you to feel abandoned, so she let you believe he was the same man who left us both. It was easier that way. Her face twisted in anger. Easier for who? For her? For you? Do you have any idea what it feels like, growing up thinking your father hated you? Thinking you weren't good enough for him to stay? My chest ached at her words. I'd thought about this moment countless times, but nothing could have prepared me for hearing her pain spoken out loud. I do know, I said softly. Because even though Dad was mine, he left anyway. And I grew up feeling abandoned too. The only difference is, I knew the truth. You didn't. She buried her face in her hands, her shoulders shaking. All those years I hated him, and he wasn't even mine to hate. I wanted to reach out, to comfort her, but I knew my touch wouldn't fix it. Not yet. Some wounds needed air before they could ever begin to heal. Lillian, I said gently, that's why I worked so hard to take care of you. That's why I sacrificed so much. Because I knew you were carrying a hurt you didn't even understand. She lifted her head slowly, her eyes red and swollen. For the first time in years, she looked at me without resentment. There was only confusion, pain, and maybe, just maybe, the beginning of understanding. If you're still listening, I need to say this again. Subscribe now. Because this is where the story shifts. This is where everything we thought we knew about our family unravels, and the truth comes into focus. Don't just be a passerby in this story. Join me, so you don't miss the parts that will stay with you long after they're told. The house was quiet again, except for the faint ticking of the clock and the occasional sob escaping Lillian's throat. My own eyes burned, but I refused to cry. I had carried this secret too long, and tonight it had finally come out. But there was more. There was something Mom told me in confidence, something even Lillian didn't know, something that might break her completely, or give her the closure she had been chasing her whole life. I wasn't sure yet if I had the strength to tell her, but I knew I couldn't keep it hidden forever. Lillian didn't move for a long time. She just sat there, staring at the floor. Her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles had turned white. I wanted to reach across the space between us, to take her hand the way I used to when we were little, girls huddled together in our bedroom during thunderstorms. But I didn't. Not yet. You should have told me, she whispered finally, her voice raw. I know, I replied, my throat thick. I wanted to 100 times. But every time I looked at you, I saw how fragile you were, even when you pretended not to be. I thought keeping it from you was protecting you. Now I realize, maybe I was just protecting myself. She lifted, her head, her eyes swollen, her mascara smudged. Protecting yourself from what? I took a deep breath. From being the one to break you. Her lips trembled, and for the first time in years, she didn't look like the tough, unshakable sister who mocked everything. She looked like the little girl who used to cry for Dad, the one who clung to me when she had nightmares. The silence, stretched, thick, and suffocating. Finally, she asked the question I had been dreading. Did Mom ever tell you anything else? My heart pounded. I had hoped she wouldn't ask, at least not tonight. But she did. And I had promised myself, once the truth started coming out, I wouldn't stop halfway. Yes, I said slowly. She told me one more thing. Something I don't even know if you're ready to hear. Her body stiffened. Tell me. Lillian, maybe it's better. Tell me, she snapped, her voice cracking with desperation. I looked at her, my chest tightening. Mom said she knew who your father was. She just never told you. Because he wasn't a stranger. Lillian blinked, confusion flooding her face. What do you mean? I hesitated, fighting the urge to swallow the words, to bury them again. But I couldn't. Not anymore. He was someone we both knew. Someone close. Her eyes widened, her voice a trembling whisper. Who? I closed my eyes. For a moment, then forced the truth out. It was one of Dad's best friends. The color drained from her face. She sat back like the words had physically struck her. No, you're lying. That's not true. It is, I said firmly, though my voice shook. His name was Richard. He used to come around the house when we were little. You remember him, don't you? Lillian's face contorted as she struggled to recall. Then, slowly, I saw the memory click. The tall man with the deep laugh, who sometimes slipped us candy when Dad wasn't looking. Her hand flew to her mouth. Oh my God. I nodded, my own hands trembling. Mom told me Richard cared about her, but he could never leave his own family. She said she loved him, but he belonged to someone else. That's why she let you believe Dad was your father. She thought it was less cruel than the truth. Lillian shook her head violently, tears streaming down her face. So my whole life was a lie? Everything I thought I knew. I wanted to tell her it wasn't all a lie, that love is complicated, that Mom had done what she thought was right. But the words caught in my throat. Because the truth is, I wasn't sure either. And here, I need to pause again. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do it now. Not because it's routine, but because these stories of hidden truths, family secrets, and the weight of silence, are not just mine. They belong to all of us. If you've ever uncovered something about your past that changed the way you see yourself, you know how powerful these moments are. Subscribe now, so you won't miss the way this story unfolds to its very end. Lillian stood up suddenly, pacing the living room, her hands tangled in her hair. Richard. All those times I wondered why Dad treated me differently. All those times I felt like I didn't belong. It wasn't my imagination, was it? Tears burned in my own eyes. No, it wasn't. She turned on me, her voice trembling with rage. And you knew this? You knew this my whole life and never told me? I swallowed hard. I was 16 when Mom told me. I was still a child myself. She begged me not to say a word. She said it would ruin you, and for years, I believed her. I thought silence was protecting you. Her laugh was hollow, broken. Protecting me? Caroline, do you have any idea what it felt like to grow up thinking I was the problem? That I wasn't enough for Dad? You could have spared me years of hating myself. Her words cut deep. She wasn't wrong. And yet, what could I have done? I was just a teenager, forced to carry the kind of secret no one should bear. I looked at her, my voice barely above a whisper. I'm sorry. But I knew sorry wasn't enough. The room was suffocating with everything unspoken. For the first time in decades, the truth was out. But truth doesn't heal instantly. It wounds first. And as I watched my sister crumble under the weight of it all, I wondered if I had just destroyed the only family I had left. Before I close this part, let me remind you again. Subscribe. Not just so you don't miss the ending, but because life is full of these kinds of stories. Moments that test love, trust, and family bonds. By subscribing, you'll be part of a space where these truths are shared every day, where you can see reflections of your own struggles in mine. Don't wait. Click it now. That night, Lillian finally stopped pacing. She sank back onto the couch, her face pale and streaked with tears. She didn't look at me. She just whispered, I don't know if I can forgive you for keeping this from me. My chest ached. I wanted to answer, but I didn't. Because forgiveness wasn't something I could demand. It was something she had to find on her own, and I knew the next words I would share with her. Mom's last confession before she died could either bring us closer or destroy us for good. The house felt heavier than it had in years. Lillian sat in silence, her body hunched forward, her face pale, her eyes swollen. She wasn't angry anymore, not in the same way. She just looked hollow, like the ground beneath her had given way, and she wasn't sure how to stand again. I sat across from her, afraid to speak, afraid to move. My heart hammered inside my chest, because I knew there was still one more truth I hadn't told her. The hardest one. The one I had sworn to bury forever. But when you've already torn someone's world apart, what difference does one more truth make, Lillian? I said softly. She lifted her head slowly, her gaze empty. There's one more thing Mom told me, right before she died. Her eyes sharpened a little. What do you mean? I hesitated, feeling my throat tighten. When Mom was in the hospital, the night before she passed, she asked me to come closer. She could barely speak, but she whispered something to me. Something I've never repeated until now. Lillian leaned back, her face tense. Caroline. What did she say? I closed my eyes for a moment, steadying myself. When I opened them, I looked right at her. She told me she regretted keeping the secret from you. She said she thought she was protecting you, but instead, she realized she had robbed you of the truth. She made me promise to tell you when the time was right. Lillian's lips trembled. And you waited until now? I didn't know when the right time was, I admitted, tears filling my eyes. But tonight, when you broke that toy, when I saw Emily crying, I realized secrets break people more than honesty ever could, and I couldn't carry it anymore. For the first time all night, Lillian didn't speak. She just stared at me, her face unreadable. I thought she might explode, scream, or storm out, but she didn't. Instead, she whispered, Did she ever say if he knew about me? If Richard knew? I swallowed hard. Yes. She said he knew, but he chose his other life, his wife, his children. She said he loved you in his own way, but not enough to claim you. Lillian covered her face with both hands. Her shoulders shook violently as sobs tore out of her chest. This wasn't the anger I had seen before. This was grief. Deep, raw, uncontrollable grief. I stood and went to her, my own tears streaming down. For the first time in years, I sat beside her, wrapping my arms around her the way I used to when we were kids. At first, she resisted, stiff against me. But slowly, she collapsed into me, her head against my shoulder, her cries soaking my shirt. I'm sorry, I whispered again and again, rocking her gently. I'm so sorry. For a long time we just sat like that, two broken sisters, holding each other together because there was nothing else left to do. And here, before I close this chapter of my life, let me say this. Subscribe to the channel now. Because this isn't just my story. It could be yours, or your neighbor's, or your mother's. We all carry secrets, regrets, and truths that change the way we see our families forever. By subscribing, you'll join me in exploring these stories every day. Stories that help us understand ourselves, our loved ones, and sometimes even forgive the unforgivable. As the night went on, Emily eventually peeked her head out of her room, her doll still clutched in her arms. Her big eyes were red from crying, but she stepped carefully into the living room. Aunt Lillian? She asked softly. Lillian quickly wiped her face, trying to force a smile. Yes, sweetie. Mom said you didn't mean to break it, Emily whispered. I forgive you. And just like that, something shifted in the room. The weight was still there, yes. The pain didn't vanish. But in that small act of forgiveness, from a child who had every right to stay angry, I saw a glimpse of hope. Lillian reached out, and Emily walked over, placing the broken doll into her hands. Lillian's tears fell again as she kissed Emily's forehead. "I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I'll fix it, I promise." I watched them, my chest tightening. Maybe some things couldn't be fixed, not completely. Maybe our family would always carry scars. But scars, I realized, are proof of survival. And maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of healing. If this story touched you, please don't forget to subscribe. Not because I want a number, but because I want you here with me, every day, walking through these stories that remind us of who we are, what we've endured, and what it means to be human. Life is full of broken toys, broken promises, and broken families, but there's also forgiveness, resilience, and love. And that's what you'll find here. Subscribe now, and let's keep walking through these stories together. That night ended with us sitting together on the couch, me, my daughter, and my broken sister. We didn't have all the answers, and maybe we never would. But for the first time in a long time, we weren't pretending anymore. And sometimes, that's enough. This is the end of my story. Thank you for staying with me. And please, if you haven't already, subscribe now. Tomorrow, I'll bring you another story that just might touch